let's talk about what makes me different from other men. Okay, so men are selfish, they're stupid, they're lazy, they're full of nacho cheese, all right, and most of all, men are ignorant, all right, and I'm saying that, from experience because, the majority of, men in the USA do not want to let go of their egos, okay? Literally, I'm talking about, that's true, in and out, they're obnoxious. They're idiots. They don't want, a woman's, true affection. What they want is they want a woman to make them, feel good instead of an absolute, person that has your side 100%. All right. Now, where it goes down to, all right, why I know the difference because my girlfriend plays this game with me. A beta male provider. What a beta male is now. Heat me. I'm a rapper. Literally, I'm Mutrix. I literally became Vegeta. All right, and how I did that was I used to run a reality show with Alberto. Well, I used to have a Jason just for da 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 versus the me and martial arts. Gills of Hamachi Malamajan. All right, and what ends up happening right is after I beat Alberto, I run the whole company at 30 when I get home from the Flamingo, I'm Vegeta, all right? That's all the work I did on foot as a rapper, for 2 Short, when you perform at the stadium and shit. That's how much work I did in real life. Anyway, back to the subject. What a beta male provider is, how Vegeta literally shrunk his nuts just now? Okay. What a beta male provider is he's somebody that's not masculine, that'll take a woman's shit, right? Literally, he will not call out, female nature or manipulation. And what you do, if you're a guy like me, with multiple options, is you call her out and she sees you with another girl, and what ends up happening is now you have control over her. Now you're not desperate. So what stops men from being desperate is that they go to these parties with this nacho cheese complex that I'm just gonna stay around and look cool. I'm gonna disagree with the autistic kid, even though he has a point, and that's the whole reason, why he fights his brother, and his uncle, because he can get concrete validation. The uncle's still lying and the brother is to a certain extent. And what that does is that puts, real people at a disadvantage. I'm telling you again, literally, the fight between me and my mom was vicious, okay? Because I did something in history. I actually chose a black and white character called Asgir again. You know how the lesbian cops, your mother trying to fool you, literally. Oh, it's like this, the gang works like that. Literally, I can confuse you with a gang, this and that. And what is black and white cut in half, literally. So they didn't know that I was a mob boss, literally, and I had mob boss strategy at the time. Because at the time I said poker face, right? Where I got the hood, I instantly started dancing with the girls, all right? So anyway, this is what it happens because he didn't get to know me. I try to tell you what DeVario is, okay? But what you didn't know about DeVario, literally, is that you did the whole trick of the fucking mid-tucks. I did that shit when I was younger, when I was with a lesbian gang, and what ends up happening is the lesbian cops confuse it. What's he in the lesbian gang or does he go to college, all right? It's true. It's completely fucking true. Bottom line, for this video, skills is an actual political debate. Because if I make the anime character skills, anime will be linear again. And, everybody will have, intellectual discussions like, Sasuke versus Danzo, Kinemura versus Neji, etc. Alright? It won't just be, one copy and paste anime for the arrow, to be unintellectual to trap you in intellect, okay? So back to, the thing. Shannon, Shinakers, ever since the 2020s, I named her, a girl who's my girlfriend in real life, all right? Literally, and that's the whole part of the deviant art community, Chisara Dorihana, Shinakers, all those, characters, all right, were important in Nans. And Nans was based off the new Naruto. So you literally stopped the new Naruto from happening by sticking in your racism, and nobody wanted to submit to a law. So literally, when I got to him, when I said poker face, I laid distance down. Now I have Brie, a girl wearing places symbol. What stopped me from making a pussy whip was I dodged a bullet, and now I became like Orlando Bloom. So everything on YouTube I did was structured all the way to the time was there. And then you actually had me stuck with Marlene. Why? Because when they're stupid. Because what ended up happening with her DeVario, the full Ontario, to get the Megalodon, is a gangster would have to give up his criminal record or to work with me. I'm like, it's so fucking simple. I had to do was an act of kindness, this and that. But a gangster literally that goes right far, the street like me, has an AK-47 on him, has an AK-47 charge, has a fucking male sexual harassment charge, literally over and over again. But guess what they have in Catastrophe 2? They can talk shit to the cops, like, oh, everything's right about food disability anyway. Literally, the cops will, play with your chances, you're a real person. I suffer from that every single day, even though I have a girl with Daniela. When you put me in the hood, literally, you make these fake, Facebook accounts and Instagram accounts, literally, and you try to fool me with Daniela, I go standard instantly, all right? It's nothing, that's more painful than, with single mother household family that has you survive on pork chops, that claims that you don't eat, the right food. Literally, when you actually eat, the ribs, the pork chops every time, literally, and the protein, you eat the protein that makes you strong, in the world, all right? So what ends up happening, right? Literally, it's calling out your strategy subconsciously that, what you're doing is working, all right? So I weigh 200 a day, but, I'm actually doing workouts that they can't, and that's the thing, but I'm telling you, in the military, Uncle Tommy had, 300 pistols every time he fucked up. But guess what ends up happening if you're autistic, all right? You count the time literally when you did that in wrestling. Literally, when you started like the practice, when you were accidentally with teenage struggle, literally, what did you do? Literally, you did 100 pistols and sips, literally like a psycho person when the coach asked you to, all right? That's why there's no swagger in detail. That's why they want to deny that the reason why I was to get, a girlfriend shit in high school was because I was still a nerd. I was listening to Japanese music. It's all about playing basketball and sports, and they try to deny it, all right? Literally. So if you want to save Nathaniel for another time, that's the truth about this video. But men are stupid. So the bottom line is that with men, I have Shannon. And Shannon is concrete, validation in and out. That means sucking her titties. That means doing this and that. That means not with. That means nothing to do with fucking ring. Spammers fucking standard. Using language standard. Going on multiple dates with multiple people. Sleazeballing people. Literally, men do not want to do that. In fact, men will submit to being homosexual. Literally, for you anything. That's the average gangster today. Using a homosexual, literally strategy in order to avoid autism, in order to avoid a fight with your uncle, alright? So many people don't their fucking uncle that I couldn't deal with mine. It's true, and that's the deal, with men today. So ask the gear again, when I'm an anime fan, calling out female nature, calling out your light-skinned mother, literally was an actual achievement of mine, and these lesbian cops are so stupid and retarded, they treat it like shit, alright? Literally, so I said, fuck everything, So now there's no pain in my back, but guess what you did? You left me to your reality. You let me literally, retreat. We can go back in time a whole bunch of times. Literally, yes, I'm doing that so you can act automatically so you don't play off your domestic violence. If I'm saying something crazy, do something. All right, you already got a couple of flashes going back in the past. Let me tell you, when you're dealing with Chris and his house, where you fucking clean the bathroom, literally nothing hurts more than his word where he said, stop drawing in the past because you can't go back to it. It's true. All right, literally, no matter if I have a boom bass like Drake out there, literally, it's completely true. What stops it? You guys, literally, you lesbian cops, you people who have below autism. The reason why people do that shit in the parties, right, is they say, if I remain with your retarded, that means I don't meet a standard. That means I won't get points and beat my family. But that happens because you remain with your retarded, because Shannon's qualities. Where did you meet Shannon? Going to all those conventions, literally, all those events, and meeting all those people and competing and dating, all right? Literally, they do the exact opposite, all right? Literally, they say, oh, it's all about, play with your chains. When the police play with your chains, literally, it's their equivalent to autism. If I have you eat a taco and drink a boba and live like me one time, literally, you want to do it. And then you have domestic violence like that. Like, now you got to pay all your debt instead of playing retarded. And that, makes people furious for only, $3,000 in debt, $30,000, versus people who have trained, it pisses me off, literally. And what they do is that society works up dildo and daffy dome, where your mom is good at, even though she was scared at the time, when you're doing the walk with your single mother, household, family, and domestic violence, right? She's scared of your facial expression, all right? So what ends up happening? What she said, literally, that I want you to be a great person instead of a person who parties, even though a person who parties affects her, literally what ends up happening is that's the whole world worrying about disability. The reason why your parents are more in debt when they're in their 30s than you are, literally, is because they try harder, and they think, oh, literally, they think the same way you do at a party, literally, because the police play with my chains because I have a disability, because I went further than saying something, I can do more shit, all right? Literally, so, what ends up happening, right? Literally, if I animate my anime, right? What ends up happening, okay? Is that if that ends up happening, right? Literally, that means, it's going to be less disability and more people. But guess what happens, literally, when you have debt in America? What stops, literally, America from fixing this debt is our entrepreneurship. Everything is fucking bought by China, literally. We give our fucking money to other fucking countries because we're not creative. And what happens in the newest generation that should be thinking about flying cars, this is that, we waste our fucking gang members, literally. People who treat us like shit. Fuck losing weight on my mother. I know what you do. Literally, you eat one time, you work out of the gang, and then you go to a whole bunch of places, then you go to jail, all right? So I'm done with this shit, all right? I compete in the fucking world. You don't want no fucking little shit, literally. If you literally were okay with fucking making a pussy wet, the police would help you, and that's why it's so hard to meet my mother. Is there anything else that you're risk? I'm fucking done. And how I feel about my mother and Uncle Tommy, on the outside, I want 100%, so I don't care anymore, all right? I care where we live every single day. I'm 31, literally, and I have, supposedly money in, another studio, but I don't have a car right now. So just think about it, literally. Marlene Silverwoman, literally, I get the whole thing out of them, and you still get their games. Literally, when it comes to games, I manipulate them. There's nothing fucking worse than this fucking sexy person, literally, with fucking green eyes manipulating you, saying, I'm not dealing with your shit. You want to play games with me? There goes the door. It takes a real strong person to stay the door.